With prices as high as ever and salaries not catching up, it's almost impossible to save any money at all. And many will be obliged to live paycheck to paycheck, as do 61% of Americans and a growing number of Japanese households. I can't stop inflation or increase your salary, but I can give you 5 money saving tips that I apply to myself to try to give you a little bit more wiggle room. Let's get started. The first step is to look for all the free money that's floating around. It's mainly coming from government or your employer. Let's start with your employer. If your employer is providing a retirement account, in the US it's obviously the 401k, very famous. In Japan it's called the DC plan, or in Japanese Kigyogata Kakute Kyoshitsu Nenkin. In the US, the maximum you can contribute this year is $23,000, and in Japan, it's going to be about 660,000 Japanese yen, which is about $4,200. The Japanese yens keep sliding, so that's a moving target. You might not be able to put all of $23,000 of contribution. That's a lot of money. If you can, congratulations, you're making a lot of money. But let's go for the median income in the US, which is $57,000 or about. That would be for about, if you put 10% of that, you're going to put $5,700 a year or $475 a month. What's really free is if your employer is providing a matching contribution. You should ask your employer. Maybe your employer provides 50% matching of your contribution or 100% matching contribution. If we go back to our example, if you're putting 10% and your employer provides 100% matching, you're not investing $5,700 a year, I should say, but you end up investing $11,400 a year, and half of it is free money, and that can come up to a lot of money after 40 years. As you can see on screen, we are talking about millions of dollars. Same for Japan. You can invest up to, or contribute, I should say, 55,000 yen a month maximum. And this is between you and your employer. Your employer can provide 100% of that or a part of that. This is free money. This is tax-free, and this is for your future. So you should definitely go ask your employer and get it done. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more detail, you can check this video that I'm going to link down below that gives you all the steps and all the calculation. The second step is to look at what your government is providing you in terms of help. Federal government in the US has a very large chunk of its budget dedicated to helping families. And for example, you should look at childcare.gov immediately to look at all the possibilities you have to get some help from your kids, for your family. This can be a lot of money. State or local government in the US are also providing a lot of help. You just need to check and take a little bit of time. One example that I found on Reddit from user DWZM1 is looking at the help you can get if you are homeschooling your children, and based on different states, as you can see on screen. And this is all the list. It changes all the time. So you should definitely look into that. So now, what about Japan? The Japanese government is pushing really hard to help families save money because of the situation we have with a declining population. And the new budget has put on the side 221.9 billion yen. Yes, it's about $1.4 billion. Just to help family in this fiscal year. So what do they do? For example, the new law for child support, or Kodomo Teate, has been completely revamped for this year in 2024. And the biggest point is that they remove any income criteria. It depending on the age of your kid, 0 to 2-year-old, if it's elementary school, if it's junior, or if it's high school. When you arrive at high school, there is nothing left and you are limited by your income. The new law that's been voted, that the details are not completely sure, but the new law is going to come into effect in October this year. As you can see, you're going to get money regardless of the age of your kid. And if you have a third child, it's even more money. This is monthly payment, and the payment is going to go from twice a year to 3 times a year. So the money is going to come. It's going to help a lot for the families with everything related to cash flow. But that's not just the national government. It's also the local government. Let's take the example of Tokyo, where I'm located. Tokyo is providing a service that's called Zero Ichihachi Support. By providing 5,000 yen per month, 60,000 yen per year, or $387 to children under the age of 18 residing in Tokyo. And this is a great initiative that I recommend you go. It's still available this year. That's not only that, your local government or your local world office can help you a lot. For example, where I'm living in northern Tokyo, the government is providing help of 81,000 yen per child to help with tuition, which is very basic. You just have to ask and just bring a paper. Very, very simple. Another thing that this government, local government is providing, and I know at least others are providing, is free healthcare for all the children up to 18 years old. Yes, free healthcare. Healthcare is so expensive, isn't it? So I really encourage you to go to your local world office, anywhere you live in Japan. Talk to other families, talk to acquaintances, and try to find there are a lot of help you can get. Another way to save money that's becoming more and more popular is buying second-hand items. This is the traditional garage sale when you go and pick up, or what we say in French, vide-grenier. In the US, the newer version is called next door, where you can look for product free or discounted depending on your area, as you can see, and you can find anything from appliances, furniture, car, pets, you have it. In Japan, the version you have, it's called Mercari. It's really, really good. You can receive the product at home or receive them at a locker, at a convenience store. If you are the one selling product, why not? Because you have things that you don't need anymore and you can sell it away and get a little bit money on that. I've used it a lot. It's really, really good. And if you're living in Singapore, there's the equivalent called Carousel that works really well, and I used to use it when I was living in Singapore. But that's not the only one. Traditional one, the charity. Do you probably know the Salvation Army that started in England? You can give them what you don't need and they're gonna resell it and accept it as a donation, or you just go to their bazaar and they're gonna have a lot of things. So if you are a bit short on money, you can go there and find a lot of very good item. Finally, you have the hand me over. If you have kids, you know how fast they grow. You buy something 6 months later, they can't wear it anymore. So you're getting from other families the hand me down. In Japan, it's called osagari. Use it. It's so good. You don't have to throw away. If you don't give it to charity, give it to people. You know, free stuff is always good. We use it a lot. Receiving from other families or between siblings, that's a really, really good way to save a lot of money as well if you have kids. Like many people, homeowners and renters alike, I try to do as many things as possible by myself. But I know my limits and I want to avoid catastrophe. That's when you need a professional, right? But professionals are very difficult to come by and can be very expensive. That's when you should think about ways to save money by using semi-professional or individuals who have retired from their trade. And that's when you can use places like in the US, TaskRabbit, that you probably know, whether it's to put together your IKEA furniture or to repair, do a bit of painting job or gardening, landscaping. You have it. And it's not just TaskRabbit in the US, it actually happened in Japan as well. You have places like Kurashi Market though. And it's really nice. You find a lot of places, a lot of things that you can ask for. You also have Zeihitomo that actually been put together or created, I should say, by a former banker that moved from the US to Japan and decided, probably on the idea of TaskRabbit, to develop that, and they find. And finally, there is Anytime that also does the same, and that's the one we use at home to clean our air conditioning. They come once a year. They are cheaper. They are usually professionals, or they do professional work on the side. That's really, really a good way to do things that you can't do by yourself inside your home at a reduced price, and that's another way to save money. Before we go to item number 4, if you've liked the video so far and those first 3 tips have been helpful for you, it would be really cool if you could give a like and maybe subscribe, or just leave a little comment below. That will help this video be seen by more people and tell me that you like this kind of content. Thank you very much. So now that I've got a bit more coffee in my system, let's go to item number 4. This is really important because money is really short, it's difficult to make ends meet, and you want to save money. To be able to do that, you need to know how much money is coming in, and you need to know where your money is being used. You can't do that just by thinking about it. You need to write it down. You need to have a visualization of where your money is going, and you need to do something that a lot of people dislike and a lot of people hate, and it's called making a budget. You see what are the categories where you're spending a lot of money. Maybe you didn't think about it, For example, you didn't know you were spending so much money on a gym membership. You haven't been going for 6 months, so it could be a good idea to cancel it. Or your mobile phone, maybe you don't need such an expensive plan and you should reduce it. Those are the things you can see by looking at the budget. Now, how do you structure your budget? A good way to structure your budget is the 50-20-30 method. Let's have a look. First, the 50 method. This is your needs, or 50% of your after-tax income should be dedicated to your needs. What are your needs? It's actually quite simple. Groceries, housing, basic utilities, transportation, insurance, the minimum loan payment and credit card payment that you need, and anything else that goes into savings and debt repayment category, childcare or other expenses you need so you can work. If you're going over 50% of your after-tax income, it means that you might be spending a little bit too much. So you need to go back at what I was saying. Look at your categories, whether you're spending a little bit too much. Groceries must be a very big item, and I guess insurance as well, and maybe credit card repayment as well. Let's go to the 20%, which is savings and debt repayment. The first thing is putting money aside, the savings. We have talked about 401k. So if you have 401k or DC in Japan, it's already taken care of. So that's already on the side. But what you really need to have is, in case of emergency, do you have money on the side to pay for them? Or do you have to go into debt, which happens a lot? A lot of people don't even have $400 or $1,000 on the side in case something happens, and any emergency, you can go very quickly to $1,000. That's why you need an emergency fund. How do you put an emergency fund together? Usually people say you need 3 to 6 months. Other people say you need 6 to 9 months of your basic expenses. So the 50% we just talked about on the side. So what you do is you look at your 50%, how much you use in 1 month. You multiply that minimum by 3, but better by 6 to 9, and that's how much money you need to put on the side. You put money on the side 10%, 15% every month. As I'm showing you, you put it on a different savings accounts up until you reach the maximum of 6 months or 9 months of emergency fund. You leave it there, you don't touch it, and in case you have an emergency, you can touch it and use it, and you don't go into debt. The second thing you need to do is the extra money with this 20% that you have is paying back your high interest debt. What is high interest debt? This is credit card debt, car loan, consumer loan, student loan, everything that's not related to your mortgage. This is money you've spent, but that's costing you a lot of money because of the interest rate. You need to pay it back as soon as possible. And to know how you take care of that, I'm going to talk in more detail in the next section, so hang in there. Once you're done with all of that, you can put more money on the side in other accounts, as I was mentioning. So that's going to be additional retirement accounts like the IRA, Roth IRA, or HSA in the US, or in Japan, the NISA, and there are many, many more in other countries. So really important, this 20% is really, really key for you to save and repay your debt, so you can save even more. Now we go to the next one, which is the 30%, and the 30% is the enjoyment budget. This is the best budget because this is the one you spend on yourself. This is going out with friends, going to the movies, buying new clothes that you like, maybe a reasonable place you go on a holiday. This is so important because you need to relax. That being said, with the time we're living in where everything is very expensive, probably your 30% is much smaller, and that's not the one you should be prioritizing. You should probably put as much money as possible from that 30% bucket to the 20% to save and repay your debt, I should say, or maybe the 50% that you're maybe going a bit over. So that's the way you should put your budget together. I'm gonna sound like a boring old man, but don't spend money you don't have if you want to save money. By that I mean, do not buy things that you don't have budgeted for and put that expense on a credit card, on a consumer loan, and then end up paying a lot of interest on it. With interest rate in the US on credit card on average at 24.37%, that's a lot of money, especially that the average balance is $6,500. Imagine how much interest in a year you're wasting, and that's money you could be saving. In Japan, the situation is a little bit better, but just a little bit, with the interest rate between 12 and 16%, but still, average balance is $2,900, and that's also quite a lot of interest that the Japanese people are paying, and they could avoid doing that. So if you have any kind of consumer debt and credit card debt, you need to repay it as fast as possible. And I'm going to give you two methods, the avalanche method and the snowball method. The snowball method is pretty straightforward. You line up all your debt in a list with the one with the smallest amount on the top and the ones with the biggest amount at the bottom. Every month from your 50% bucket, you pay the minimal amount, and anything you save in your 20%, you put it on the one on the top of your list until it's paid back, and then you go down and down and down. It is a great method to get quick wins if you need motivation, because you get the debt out of the way very easily, at least the first few. You have the avalanche method, which is the opposite. By that, you list up everything, but rather than putting the smaller amount, you put the one with the highest interest debt. The highest interest because mathematically that's the one that's going to lower your financial burden quicker. From your 50% every month you do the minimum. Everything that you have extra in your savings in the 20% bucket, you put into the one on top until it's paid, and you go down, down and down. If you want more details on that, I'm going to link to a video down below so you can go into more details on how to repay this debt, get out of all this burden and save literally thousands of dollars every year in interest debt. I hope those 5 tips were useful for you to find ways to save money in this very, very difficult environment. If you want to go a bit further and learn about ways to use your paycheck in the best way possible, I have this video already. And if you want to learn a little bit more about Dave Ramsey's 7 Baby Step Millionaire, I have this video ready for you. If you like this content and learn something, please give it a like. Do not hesitate to subscribe for more videos to come. And if you have anything to share, please leave a comment down below. Thank you again, and until next time, goodbye.